My name is Amanda Fields. 1 year ago, I found out my husband was cheating on me, but I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't beg him to come back. I just stayed quiet. For 365 days, I pretended not to know. I cooked dinner. I smiled. I wore the wedding ring he once chose for me. But behind his back, I wrote down everything, every lie, every secret glance at her, every "I'm working late" that led him to her arms. And on our 10th wedding anniversary, while he was busy making dinner reservations for two, I handed him a box. Inside, not a gift, not a letter, a divorce invitation. The kind of anniversary present no man ever forgets. Soft, subtle call to action. If you've ever felt trapped in silence, my story might just be the key that unlocks yours. Hit subscribe, like the video, and let's take this revenge journey together. 9 years into my marriage, I had memorized the way my husband Tyler held his coffee mug. I could tell his mood by the way he tied his tie. When he was tense, the knot sat high on his collarbone, pulled too tight. When he was relaxed, it hung loose and slightly off-center. For nearly a decade, I thought these were the kinds of details that made a marriage last, the small things you paid attention to, the unspoken rhythms you picked up on because you loved someone enough to notice. So when those rhythms changed, even subtly, I noticed. It started with a shift so small, I told myself I was imagining it. He came home late 2 nights in a row, then 4. His explanations were vague. Client dinner, he'd say, or ran long with the board. That wasn't unusual for a man running a tech startup, but the way he said it, it lacked the color, the size, the casual complaints he usually added. No griping about the overcooked salmon or the passive-aggressive investors. Just statements, blank and clean. Tyler had always been an expressive man, especially with me. He used to tell me everything. The wins, the losses, the weird things people said in meetings. I was his safe space. But lately, he'd started talking like he was reading from a script. I convinced myself it was stress. Maybe a funding round wasn't going well. Maybe he was embarrassed. I didn't want to be the nagging wife, the suspicious one, so I buried the thoughts. I smiled. I made his favorite mushroom risotto. I folded his sweaters the way he liked. But the silence grew heavier. Then came the smell. It wasn't my perfume. I wear vanilla and amber, soft, cozy notes. This was floral, sharp, almost too sweet, like something a younger woman would wear. It clung to his collar one evening when he leaned in to kiss my cheek, distracted. I held the fabric for a beat longer than I should have, then let it go. I didn't ask. The next morning, I noticed a long, light-colored hair curled inside the passenger seat of his car. I have dark brown hair, almost black. This one was golden, blonde. I stared at it for a moment, heart thudding louder with every second, then gently closed the door like I hadn't seen it. This is how it begins, isn't it? Not with a confession or a fight, but with a whisper. A single thread pulling loose. I did confront Tyler. Not then. Instead, I began watching. I noted the sudden interest in his appearance. The new cologne, he said, was a gift from a vendor. The way he started going to the gym more often, even though he used to call it a corporate trap. His phone, once left freely on the kitchen counter, was now always face down. Notifications silenced. Still, I said nothing. I asked nothing. I smiled more. I laughed at his stories, even when they felt rehearsed. If he was cheating, I needed to be sure. Because if I blew this up without proof, I wouldn't just lose a husband. I'd lose the foundation I'd built my life on. My reputation. My peace. So I played the role. One night, he left his phone charging in the living room and went upstairs to shower. I stood there staring at it like it was a grenade. A single wrong move, and everything could explode. I picked it up, locked. But Tyler, the man who once trusted me with every corner of his life, hadn't changed his passcode in years. I entered it. And just like that, the cracks in my marriage stopped being invisible. There she was, Claire. A name I'd heard in passing. She worked in marketing at his company. Young, smart, the kind of woman you assign to pitch meetings because she was sharp and beautiful and knew how to own a room. The texts weren't overtly sexual, not yet. But they were personal. Inside jokes I wasn't part of, photos of lunches, a picture of a cat in a coffee mug captioned, "This reminded me of you today." I scrolled, breath shallow. Tyler replied with emojis, with compliments, with "God, you're funny, and you're the best part of my day." He had said that to me once, years ago. My hands shook. I locked the phone, set it back exactly as it was, and walked into the kitchen. I remember pouring myself a glass of water and staring out the window. The neighbor's dog barked at a squirrel. A kid biked past with a Pokémon backpack. It was a normal day in every sense, except for the fact that my world had tilted. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I planned. That night, I lay beside Tyler in bed, his back to me, and I stared at the ceiling for hours. Not because I was broken, but because I was waking up. Because that was the moment I realized something profound. I could let this destroy me, or I could destroy it first, and no one would ever see it coming. The next morning, I sat at the breakfast table like everything was normal. Tyler walked in, slightly distracted, scrolling through his phone. "Morning," he muttered, planting a kiss on my forehead. "Morning," I replied. I slid a cup of coffee across the table. Just the way he liked it, black, 2 sugars, no cream. I wanted him to feel safe, still wrapped in the illusion. I watched him sip it, his eyes scanning emails, a small smile tugging at his lips. Probably Claire. Probably her ridiculous memes that he claimed only she really got. I smiled too. Over the next few days, I became 2 people. The wife he thought he knew, and the woman who had finally opened her eyes. I began tracking things, his schedule, his mood, his absences. I made notes in a private document stored in a cloud account under a fake name. Each entry was meticulous. March 12, late again. Claimed bored dinner, wore same cologne as before, shirt collar lipstick free. Phone face down at all times. Seemed nervous. I wasn't sure what I would do with it yet, but writing it down gave me power. It gave structure to the chaos. One night, I lay in bed while Tyler showered and stared at the ceiling, rehearsing different versions of the confrontation. Me screaming, him denying, me throwing plates, him crying, but none of those felt right. They all ended with me losing something, my pride, my peace, my control. No. If he was going to destroy this marriage, I was going to control how it ended. That night, something inside me shifted. I began reading about infidelity, what it meant psychologically, emotionally. I joined a subreddit anonymously, of course. R Surviving Infidelity. Every story felt like mine. Every comment made me feel less alone, less crazy. One post stood out: "Don't confront until you're ready to walk away. Gather everything. Make your exit powerful, clean, controlled." I bookmarked it. The next week, I made an appointment with a divorce attorney, not to file, just to learn. Knowledge was armor. I learned about asset division, about what counted as marital property, about documenting cheating. It was business, cold, clinical. I left the office strangely empowered. Tyler had no idea. He kissed me that night and said I looked beautiful in blue. I almost laughed. 9 years of marriage, and I was finally learning what it meant to protect myself. And so the first crack became a fracture, a split no one could see yet, but I saw it, and I would never unsee it again. It's strange how betrayal sharpens your senses. I used to overlook things. The way Tyler drummed his fingers when he lied, the way his eyes darted left before he deflected a question. But now, every tiny movement felt like Morse code, my brain learning to translate the language of deception. Claire. I kept repeating the name in my head like a chant, like a curse. Claire. The woman who took up space in my husband's texts, in his schedule, and clearly in his heart. I didn't know the full extent of their affair yet, but I knew enough to begin. I didn't want to confront him without evidence. Cold, hard, undeniable. Something I could put on a table, look him in the eye, and watch his face crumble under the weight of it. So I hired someone, not just any investigator. I found a woman named Marla, an ex-cop turned pie who came highly recommended in some of the online forums I'd been lurking in. She didn't ask a lot of questions. She just took notes, nodded, and said, "I'll get you what you need." While she worked, I kept up my performance. The dutiful wife, dinners on time, birthday plans, random texts of love and encouragement. If Tyler noticed anything different about me, he never said. 2 weeks in, Marla delivered. Photos, time-stamped. Claire and Tyler walking out of a hotel in the middle of a Wednesday afternoon. Him holding her hand, her adjusting his tie. Him kissing her on the cheek before they got into separate cars. It wasn't just emotional anymore. It was physical, real, tangible, and still, I said nothing. Instead, I printed the photos and filed them into a thick envelope I labeled simply Tuesday. I hid it in a box in the closet behind old Christmas decorations. Each time I found something new, I added it to the envelope, a slow-growing tumor of truth. I started to see the affair everywhere. A receipt for dinner at a place he swore he hated. The sudden interest in yoga retreats. His sudden inability to recall details from the day before. He was slipping, and I was watching. One night, I pretended to be asleep when he came in late. I heard the floorboard creak. I heard him tiptoe in, undress in the dark. He climbed into bed gently, like he thought I'd break if he moved too fast. I almost laughed. Or cried, maybe both. I kept a journal now, not the teenage kind filled with feelings, but a forensic log. Like I was documenting a crime, because I was. March 21 came home 10:42 p.m. Smelled like sandalwood. Wasn't wearing wedding ring. Said he lost it at the gym. March 23, dinner out, claimed it was a partner meeting. Receipt in pants pocket shows Claire's favorite restaurant. March 25, deleted call log. I recovered it. 3 calls to see between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. I became obsessed with detail. And the more I wrote, the stronger I felt. I was no longer the woman wondering. I was the woman watching, the woman collecting, the woman preparing. And Tyler, he had no clue. He thought he was getting away with it, that I was still his soft place to land, that I would never leave, that I didn't have it in me. He was so wrong. I wasn't sure when I'd make my move. I just knew I would, but not until the picture was complete, and Marla wasn't done yet. One rainy Friday afternoon, she called me. Her voice was flat, professional, but I could hear something underneath. Urgency. "Meet me. I have something you'll want to see." I drove to a coffee shop on the edge of town. She was already there, a folder waiting on the table between us. No small talk. She slid the folder over. Inside were screenshots, emails. Claire and Tyler had been using company resources to plan personal getaways, charging hotel rooms to business accounts, flights listed under fake meetings, even a rental cabin booked under my name. Fraud, not just betrayal, not just lies, something legal, something dangerous. I looked up at Marla. "This enough for you?" she asked. I nodded slowly. "Yeah, this is more than enough." I closed the folder. And that night, as Tyler lay beside me snoring, I whispered into the dark, "Your mask is slipping, sweetheart, and I see everything now." After the folder hit the bottom of my desk drawer, something inside me clicked. I wasn't Amanda Fields, the devoted wife, anymore. I became Amanda Fields, the strategist, the woman playing the long game. For weeks, I rehearsed everything. My expressions, my tone, even the tilt of my head when I looked at Tyler. I studied myself in the mirror the way an actress studies her character before opening night. The goal. To become the version of Amanda he expected to see, soft, loyal, just distracted enough not to notice. All while the real me sharpened in secret. I started waking up earlier, making green smoothies like those wellness wives on Instagram. Tyler noticed. New diet. he asked one morning, half smirking. I smiled. New phase. I didn't explain. I also started going to the gym, something I hadn't done regularly in years. At first, it was just to buy time away from home. But soon, I found something unexpected. Control. With every mile on the treadmill, with every weight lifted, I shed something. The desperation, the confusion, the need to be chosen. Instead, I started choosing myself. My wardrobe changed too. Subtle shifts, tailored blazers, lipstick that said I didn't need approval. I didn't become someone Tyler wouldn't recognize. No, I became someone he'd notice for all the wrong reasons. And notice he did. He started complimenting me more, holding my hand again in the grocery store. Once, he even left me a note on my desk. "You've been glowing lately. I like it." I stared at the handwriting for a long time before folding it neatly and placing it in the trash. This wasn't for him. Every act of self-care became an act of war. Behind the scenes, I kept collecting. More receipts, more patterns. I noticed Claire had a routine. She always parked in the same corner of the office lot. I noted which days Tyler came home late and cross-referenced them with Claire's social media posts. She was careless. One post geotagged her at a hotel Tyler once claimed was terrible for business dinners. I printed it, labeled it, stored it with the others. This was no longer just survival, it was architecture. I was building an exit so flawless, so well-structured it wouldn't leave a single crack behind. But it wasn't all cloak and dagger. Something deeper was changing, too. I began investing. Quietly. I took online courses in finance and digital marketing. I opened new bank accounts under my maiden name. I told Tyler they were for a design project I was consulting on. He didn't ask. By the time April rolled around, I had a portfolio, a plan, and 3 months' worth of emergency funds set aside. I wasn't waiting for freedom anymore. I was preparing to walk into it. Evenings with Tyler became easier once I stopped looking for honesty. I didn't flinch at his excuses anymore. I didn't cry when he said he was tired and rolled over. I just watched, calculated. And sometimes I smiled because I knew things he didn't. He was living in a world that no longer existed. One night, we had dinner with friends, a double date. Tyler was charming, affectionate. He kept his hand on my thigh under the table like we were still 25 and madly in love. I played the part, laughed at his jokes, bragged about his company, but inside I was ice. Later in the car, he turned to me and said, "You know, nights like this remind me why I married you." I turned to him slowly and said, "You don't need a reminder, Tyler. You just need better memory." He laughed, thinking it was a joke. I didn't. Back at home, I stood in the bathroom staring at my reflection. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was rebirth. And the woman staring back at me, she wasn't afraid of him or her. Or losing the house, the ring, the history. Because she had already lost it all. And what she found in its place was fire. Freedom, I learned, wasn't loud. It didn't come with slammed doors or shouted accusations. It came quietly, layer by layer, plan by plan, and I was building mine with precision. Every smile I gave Tyler, every dinner I cooked, every kiss on the cheek was a chess move. He thought he was winning because I hadn't left, because I wasn't crying. But I wasn't playing the same game he was. I was playing to end it. Step by step, I became more invisible to him, not in presence, but in intention. He stopped noticing the way I scanned his pockets when I did laundry. The way I paused just a little too long when he said, "I love you." He didn't see that my hugs were more clinical now, that I measured the distance between his heart and mine by how long he held me. I started keeping a second phone, a burner. I told Tyler I was helping a friend run social media for a nonprofit project. He didn't blink. On that phone, I stored every document, every photo, every screen capture. It was synced to cloud storage, encrypted under a name no one would think to search, my grandmother's maiden name. I knew where every dollar went. I tracked Tyler's business expenses. I accessed our joint financials weekly, downloading statements. The more I looked, the more I found. Money moving between accounts, travel expenses disguised as vendor meetups, gifts categorized as client appreciation. He was sloppy, confident, arrogant, and that made my job easier. I compiled everything into categorized folders, one labeled infidelity, one labeled financial misconduct, another labeled timeline. I color-coded dates and flagged overlap. I cross-referenced Claire's Instagram posts with Tyler's calendar invites. Their affair had a rhythm now. Tuesdays and Thursdays, some weekends. Always when I was supposedly at my parents' house or a design expo, which of course I was. I hired a forensic accountant, quietly, paid in cash. The woman had the calm demeanor of someone who had seen too much and judged none of it. She didn't ask why. She just nodded, took the flash drive, and said, "I'll handle it." And I believed her. At home, I began shifting my presence. I stopped leaving things in shared drawers. I moved items one by one into a locked suitcase in the back of the closet. It was slow and careful. I even wrapped my perfume bottles in scarves so he wouldn't hear the clink. I began memorizing legal terms in my spare time. Community property, no-fault divorce, adultery clauses, separate assets. I watched YouTube lectures on family law as I did dishes. I took notes while folding laundry. I wasn't just preparing to leave. I was preparing to leave without losing. My attorney and I met bi-weekly now. We drafted documents. She advised me on the best timing, financial quarters, tax filings, custody implications for the dog we didn't have but once talked about. "You're not running," she said once, as I handed her another folder. "You're reorganizing your life like a CEO exiting a company. That's rare." I nodded, because that's exactly what I was doing. One evening, Tyler came home with flowers. Tulips, my least favorite. He should have known. I thanked him anyway, placed them in a vase, and watched them wilt over the next 3 days. It felt poetic. He also brought takeout and suggested we watch a movie. A rom-com. Something with fake problems and predictable endings. I agreed. I even cuddled next to him, head on his shoulder, counting the beats of his heart. It was wild how he still believed we were okay. "You're quiet lately," he said, half joking. "Just tired," I smiled. "A lot going on at work." He nodded. "Well, I'm here, you know that, right?" "Of course," I said, and I meant it. He was here, just not for long. That night, while he snored beside me, I finished uploading my final files. The dossier was complete. I had location data, financial records, witness logs, emails, audio snippets from a restaurant mic I placed during a fake, surprise lunch for him and Claire. I even had video. One clean clip of them walking hand in hand down the hallway of a boutique hotel, faces full of ease. No guilt, no shame. I watched it once, just once, not because I needed proof, but because I wanted to see the last time I would ever cry over him. I didn't cry. Instead, I smiled. A full, real, unshaking smile, because the war was nearly over, and I had already won. The more you know, the less you feel. That's something I didn't understand until I found myself staring at a spreadsheet of betrayal. Dates, charges, transfers, locations. There was something mechanical about it all. A clean, clinical pattern of lies. It was no longer about feelings. It was about facts, and I had them all. There was no missing piece anymore. Tyler's affair with Claire wasn't a one-time mistake or even a heated summer fling. It was an operation, strategic, repetitive, and without remorse. He had taken her on trips to places he never invited me. Aspen, Cabo, Montreal. Places I had once pointed out in travel magazines, only to be told, maybe next year when things settle down. Meanwhile, he was out there feeding her lobster in French Canada, paid for with business funds. I had receipts. My forensic accountant built a timeline that could make a prosecutor weep from its precision. She handed it to me, page after page, color-coded and cross-checked. I didn't feel angry. I felt ready. The day I found out Claire was pregnant, the world around me didn't collapse. It shifted. Marla sent the update like she always did, short and clear. Claire is pregnant. Looks like she told him last night. They met at the docks around 10 p.m. He hugged her for a long time. I stared at the message. And then, for the first time in months, I let myself feel something. Not heartbreak, pity. Because now the weight of their decisions wasn't just in my files, it was in her womb. And that changed the game. I took a few days to breathe, to think. I spent time with my sister, laughed with her kids, made cookies I didn't eat. I needed to remember who I was before all of this. Then I came home and planned the next move. I called my attorney and asked how Claire's pregnancy would impact divorce proceedings. She was unfazed. We don't need a paternity test unless you want one. But if she claims dependency and he confirms, it could affect how we frame the financial argument, especially if he's using joint assets to support her. He was. Tyler had paid for her OBGYN appointment with our shared card. Bold or stupid, maybe both. I copied the charge, added it to the Claire folder, and moved on. The house, which once felt like a shared life, now became a stage. And I was staging the last scene. That's when I hosted the dinner party, just 6 of us. Tyler's parents, my sister and brother-in-law, and of course us. I wanted it to look normal, beautiful, stable. I prepared everything myself. Roast chicken, glazed carrots, red wine, soft jazz humming under it all. I wore a navy blue dress that hugged me just right. Tyler couldn't stop smiling. "You always amaze me," he whispered in my ear while refilling my glass. "We should do this more often." I nodded. "Maybe next time you can help me prep." He chuckled. "Deal." Mid-dinner, Claire called. I had changed her contact name to work in Tyler's phone months ago. So when it buzzed on the kitchen counter, vibrating next to the wine bottle, I calmly picked it up. "Work-'s calling," I said aloud. Everyone looked up. Tyler froze. I answered. "Hey babe, I'm outside. Do you want me to?" Silence. My sister's fork stopped midair. His mother's eyes darted to his face, then back to me. "Wrong number," I said cheerfully and hung up. Tyler's face was pale. I smiled and took another sip of wine. He didn't speak for the rest of the meal. After everyone left, he tried to explain. Stammered something about Claire going through a mental breakdown. I listened. Nodded. Asked if he needed to go check on her. He said no. Of course not. I kissed his cheek and thanked him for being honest. Then I turned out the lights and went upstairs. He slept in the guest room that night. The next morning, he brought me coffee, said he was sorry. "I just want to make this right," he said. "You will," I replied. "You'll get the chance soon enough." And with that, I confirmed our anniversary dinner reservation. In the days leading up to our 10th anniversary, I lived as if I were preparing for a wedding. Only this time, I wasn't walking toward a future. I was walking out of a past. Every moment of the week felt like something sacred or sacrificial. I moved with precision. I spoke gently. I smiled when necessary. Tyler had gone from distant to attentive again, as if some invisible switch had flipped. Maybe it was the dinner party. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was fear. I didn't care. All that mattered was staying on script. He booked a table at our favorite restaurant downtown, the one with the string lights and private booths and overpriced cocktails. I hadn't been there in over 2 years. Last time we went, he toasted to forever. Now I'd be the one raising the glass. But before that night, I had one more job to finish. The letter. It wasn't a confession. It wasn't even meant for him. It was for me. A way to anchor myself in the storm I was about to unleash. I wrote it in one sitting. Pen on paper. My handwriting steady, even as my breath faltered. I folded it neatly and placed it in a sealed envelope marked only with a date. June 12, our anniversary. That morning, I called Marla. "It's tomorrow," I said. There was a pause. "Are you ready?" "I'm not sure," I admitted. "But it's time." "I'll be nearby," she replied, "in case anything goes sideways." I don't think he'll make a scene. No, but sometimes it's not them. It's us. It's the history, the memories. You sure this is the way you want to do it? I want him to remember it, clearly, viscerally, and I want to be the one who gives him that memory. I hung up and drove to the post office. I mailed a second envelope, this one to Claire. No return address, no threats. Just one photograph, Tyler and Claire kissing outside the OBGYN clinic. Underneath, in ink, "Did he tell you this was our money?" Let her deal with that in her own way. Back home, I prepared the box. A small velvet square, lined with satin. Inside, the divorce papers, a flash drive of all collected evidence, and the letter. I tied it with a white ribbon. Tyler walked in as I was cleaning the counter. "Reservations are at 7, he said, leaning in to kiss my temple. "Perfect," I replied, as if I hadn't already confirmed them myself. "I'm glad we're doing this," he said. "Feels like a reset." I smiled. Yeah, a reset. The night before our dinner, I lay awake in bed, watching the ceiling spin slowly. He slept beside me, unaware that the next 24 hours would dismantle everything he thought was safe. I reached over, not to touch him, but to feel the space. It felt endless. That afternoon, I stood in front of the mirror, wearing the same dress I wore the night he proposed. Not because I was nostalgic, but because I wanted him to remember who I was, who I had been, who he lost. My hair was soft-curled, makeup subtle but sharp. The box sat quietly in my bag, nestled between my wallet and a pack of tissues I wouldn't use. He complimented me when I came down the stairs. "You look beautiful," he said, stunned. "So do you," I replied, and I meant it. Beautiful lies can wear beautiful suits. At dinner, we ordered wine. He toasted, clinked glasses. "To second chances," he said. I sipped. "To clarity." We laughed, we shared an appetizer, he reached for my hand. "Let's travel this summer," he offered. "Let's go to Montreal." I almost laughed. Almost. I waited until dessert. When the plates were cleared and the waiter offered coffee, I shook my head. "Actually," I said, reaching into my bag, "I have something for you." I placed the velvet box on the table. Tyler blinked. His fingers unwrapped the ribbon slowly. I watched his face as he opened it. His lips parted. His eyes scanned the papers, the flash drive, the letter. His mouth opened to speak, but nothing came out. The silence was perfect. And then I stood up, leaned forward, and whispered, "Happy anniversary." I turned and walked out, heels clicking on marble tile, the sound sharp, final, and free. I didn't look back. As I stepped out of the restaurant into the humid night, the door shutting quietly behind me, I felt the first full breath of freedom in what felt like years. The weight didn't vanish all at once. It peeled off in pieces. With each step I took toward the curb, toward the waiting cab, I shed years of denial, confusion, humiliation. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just let go. Behind me, Tyler sat with a velvet box in his hands, the truth finally unwrapped. Let him sit with it. Let it burn. Let it brand him. The cab ride home was quiet. The driver made a polite comment about the traffic and the warm night, and I nodded, smiling slightly. I was still in my dress, still in the makeup he loved, but inside I wasn't his wife anymore. I was no one's. I reached home and walked in alone. I didn't flip on the lights. I didn't need to see the furniture we chose together or the photos that still hung in the hallway. I climbed the stairs, slipped off the dress, folded it carefully, and placed it in a donation bag. That version of Amanda didn't live here anymore. The rest of the night moved slowly. I brewed tea. I opened the windows. I wrote in my journal. I slept in the guest room, not because I had to, but because I could. In the morning, the front door opened just before 7 a.m. Tyler. I heard the slow, hesitant creak of the door, the gentle thud of his shoes on the hardwood. He didn't call out. He was never the type to shout when scared. I imagined him holding the box still, or maybe just the letter. I imagined his heart racing like mine used to when I suspected. Only now there were no doubts. He knocked softly on the guest room door. Amanda. I was sitting at the desk, already dressed. I didn't answer. Amanda, can we talk? I opened the door. His face was pale, tired, like he hadn't slept. His tie was crooked. He looked less like a man and more like a crumbling version of one. I didn't know how much you knew, he said, voice hoarse. I thought. You thought I wouldn't find out, I interrupted. Or worse, you thought I'd find out and stay. He blinked. I never meant for it to go this far, he said. Claire's pregnant. He paused, then nodded. I was going to tell you. You used our money, I continued. For her. For hotel rooms. For gifts. For her medical bills. He looked away. You can't pretend this was an accident. You built a second life, Tyler. A quiet one, a careful one. You protected it better than you protected me. I was lost, he whispered. We were drifting apart. No, I said. You were drifting, I was here. He stepped forward. Can we talk, really talk? Maybe therapy, maybe. I laughed, not cruelly, just honestly. We passed therapy 3 cities ago, Tyler. He opened his mouth, closed it. I'm not going to ruin you, I said calmly. I'm not going to humiliate you. I'm not even going to fight for more than what I'm owed. But I am leaving. And you will sign the papers. His eyes filled with something I couldn't name. Maybe regret. Maybe just shock that he'd finally lost control. I loved you, he said. I loved you too, I replied. Once. He didn't cry. Neither did I. Instead, I handed him a new folder. This one contained the terms of the divorce. Clean, fair, devastating in its finality. Take a few days, but not more than that, I said. I want this filed by the end of the week. He looked down at the folder like it weighed more than he could carry. I never thought you'd do this, he whispered. That's the difference between us, I said. You assumed I'd stay. I prepared to leave. He left shortly after. No yelling. No threats, just silence. Later that day, Claire called me. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened. Her voice was panicked, confused, angry. Did you send that photo? What kind of person does that? Are you trying to ruin my life? No, just returning the favor. I didn't respond. Instead, I began calling moving companies. Over the next 2 days, I packed my things, donated clothes, sold furniture, labeled boxes, cleaned the house until it shined like something new. I wasn't just leaving Tyler. I was leaving the ghost of the girl who loved him. I signed the final documents on a Friday morning. He returned them that afternoon. It was done. On Saturday, I moved into a new apartment. Small, bright, mine. On Sunday, I bought myself flowers. And on Monday, I woke up to no one but myself. It felt like a beginning. Freedom is never free. It's not just a line from a history book or a bumper sticker. It's the quiet truth no one tells you when you finally break the chains. There is always a cost, and I was about to find out what it meant to pay it. The first week in my new apartment was filled with small triumphs. Unpacking boxes, hanging curtains, finding the perfect coffee mug for my first solo morning. Every little moment felt like I was reclaiming space, physically, emotionally, spiritually. I had thought naively that once the papers were signed, the rest would fade, that Tyler and Claire would disappear into their own mess. But betrayal, especially the calculated kind, never dissolves quietly. It echoes. On the second Monday in my new place, I received an email from HR at Tyler's company. The subject line, formal notification, legal inquiry. For a moment I froze, my heart beat faster. Then I opened it. It was a courtesy notice. My name had been mentioned in connection with an internal audit. Financial discrepancies had been discovered involving travel expenses, reimbursements, and unauthorized card use, all pointing to Tyler and Claire. They were under investigation. I hadn't reported them, not directly, but the anonymous tip line had received detailed documentation, a copy of which looked very much like what had been on the flash drive I'd given Tyler. I smiled. It wasn't my revenge, but it was justice. Marla texted me later that evening. "You're welcome, don't worry, it can't be traced." I replied with a heart emoji. She sent back a thumbs up. The next day, the fallout began. Claire was suspended immediately. Tyler was placed on administrative leave. His board of directors issued a statement about reviewing ethics protocols and internal controls. It made the news. A small article on a local business blog, then a repost by a gossip page, then viral. I didn't share it. I didn't like it. I didn't speak about it. I didn't have to. People who knew me started reaching out. Old college friends, former coworkers, even a neighbor from 3 years ago. "Are you okay? You always seemed too good for him." "Holy crap, Amanda, did you know?" I kept my replies short. "Yes, I'm okay. Thank you." I didn't need to tell the story anymore. It was telling itself. Meanwhile, Claire's pregnancy didn't go as planned. A mutual friend told me she'd gone quiet on social media. Rumors swirled Tyler wasn't attending her doctor appointments. She had moved in with her sister. The ring he gave her returned. I didn't feel joy in that, but I didn't feel sorrow either. She knew he was married. She knew where the money came from. She didn't deserve pain, but she earned consequence. As for Tyler, his world shrank. A lawyer friend confirmed he was negotiating a settlement with the company, stepping down voluntarily to avoid litigation. His stock options would be frozen, severance slashed. I wondered if he blamed me. Then I realized I didn't care. One night, about a month after our divorce finalized, I saw him. He was at the grocery store. I almost didn't recognize him. He'd lost weight. His eyes looked sunken. He was pushing a cart with 2 bags of cereal and a single gallon of milk. He saw me and froze. I walked right past him. Not out of cruelty, but because ghosts don't need closure. Outside, I sat in my car and stared at the steering wheel for a long time. I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry. I was simply empty of him. And that emptiness, it felt like peace. I went home, lit a candle, took a long bath, opened a book, slept soundly. A week later, I received an invitation to speak at a women's networking event, a small local group. They wanted me to share my story, not the scandal, but the strength, the reinvention. At first, I hesitated. Then I said yes. Standing in front of that group of women, all different ages and backgrounds, I told them the story, not of how he broke me, but how I built myself back. I watched heads nod, eyes well up. People leaning forward not because of gossip, but because they saw themselves in my words. Afterward, a woman approached me, mid-50s, divorced, quiet. She said, "You made me feel brave." That's when I realized something. Revenge isn't the point. The point is survival, reinvention, reclamation. It's saying, you may have hurt me, but you don't get to keep me. And in that room, in that moment, I knew. I had paid the price of betrayal, but what I bought was freedom. The funny thing about starting over is that it doesn't come with a big announcement. No ribbon cutting, no parade, just quiet mornings, small habits, and one courageous choice after another. I got used to silence. Not the kind that used to fill my old house, heavy with lies and half-truths, but a new kind. The kind you wake up to in your own apartment. The kind you choose. It became the sound of safety. I planted a small herb garden on the balcony. Mint, basil, rosemary. I cooked for myself without worrying about anyone's preferences. I danced in the kitchen without worrying who might see. For the first time in years, my space reflected me. No compromises. I was alive. 3 months after the divorce, I applied for a position on the board of a nonprofit that supported women rebuilding after abuse and betrayal. I didn't expect much, but they called. They invited me in. I shared my story, and they said yes. Every Thursday night, I sat in a circle with women who had cried in silence the way I once did. Some were angry, some numb. Some still stuck. I didn't give advice. I told my truth. And sometimes that was enough. One night, a woman named Tasha sat beside me after the group ended. She had a bruise just under her sleeve and a voice like a whisper. "I used to think I couldn't leave," she said. But you make it seem possible. I didn't say you can. I said you will, when you're ready. That's the thing I'd learned. No one can drag someone out of the darkness, but you can be a lamp. A story, a reminder that there's something beyond the pain. The nonprofit asked me to speak again, this time at a larger conference. I stood behind the podium, lights on my face, and I told the truth. Not about the affair, or the finances, or even the hurt. I spoke about the moment I realized I was worth more. The moment I stopped waiting to be rescued. The moment I wrote the letter and tied the ribbon. I spoke about the anniversary dinner, about walking away. And I ended with this. Sometimes the bravest thing you'll ever do is nothing. No screaming, no fighting, just walking out with everything you know and everything they never expected you to hold. Applause came like a wave. I didn't need it, but I felt it. A tide of women who saw themselves in my quiet strength. I wasn't famous. I wasn't viral, but I was visible in the way that mattered. I began writing, not a book. Just blog posts, notes, letters to my former self. I called the site The Quiet Exit. It started as therapy, it became a movement. Hundreds of women found it, shared it, wrote to me. And one evening, as I watched the sun dip behind the skyline from my little balcony, a message arrived. Because of you, I left. That was it, but it was everything. I didn't need revenge anymore because I had a life. And that life, my life, was built not on bitterness but on boundaries. Not on vengeance but on vision. They say survival is the first step, but they forget to tell you how powerful it is to thrive. To wake up one day, months after the storm, and realize, I am no longer the woman who was betrayed. I am the woman who survived. Closure isn't a door slamming shut. It's a window quietly opening. Months had passed since the night I slid that velvet box across the table. The woman I was then, calculated, calm, and quietly shattered, felt like someone I used to know. Now my life no longer orbited Tyler's shadow. It spun freely in its own rhythm. I had no intention of building an empire from my pain, but somehow, brick by brick, I found myself standing on something solid, something real. Freedom. I launched a small consultancy, a design studio with a twist. I helped women who had left long-term relationships rebuild their personal and physical spaces. We reimagined their bedrooms, redesigned their homes, reorganized their lives. It wasn't just about throw pillows or light fixtures. It was about reclaiming space. Their space. And with each transformation, I saw a spark return to someone's eyes. A quiet fire. The kind that can't be stolen. I woke up on the morning of what would have been our 11th anniversary with no ache, no sadness, no need to revisit the past. But I did one thing. I wrote a letter, not to Tyler, to myself. Dear Amanda, you did it. You made it through. You stayed soft, even when the world wanted to harden you. You didn't fight fire with fire. You built a new world with water and patience. You walked out with your head high and your heart intact. And most importantly, you never looked back. Love always. I sealed it and placed it in the same box that once held our wedding photos. The photos were gone now, shredded, burned, or tossed long ago. But the box remained, not as a keepsake, as a lesson. That night, I walked into my apartment after dinner with friends and turned on the lights. No secrets here. No lies hiding behind a warm smile. Just walls I had painted myself. Books I chose. Music I loved. The news had long moved on from Tyler and Claire. He'd taken a job in another city. She disappeared from public view. The baby, well, no one really knew what happened there. I didn't ask. I didn't care. Because my story wasn't about them. It never really was. It was about the moment I stopped asking why someone broke me and started asking what can I build now. I sat on my couch, glass of wine in hand, laptop on my lap. An email blinked in. Subject: your story saved me. Another woman, another beginning. I didn't cry, I smiled. The quiet revenge is this, living well. Living without needing to prove anything to anyone. The revenge is being unreachable, Not because you're hiding, but because you've risen so far they can't reach you anymore. And in that quiet, personal place where the pain once lived, there's only one thing now: peace. So if you're reading this somewhere, anywhere, and wondering if you can survive your betrayal, you already have. The rest is just the life you choose to build next. Build it, because I did, and I'm finally home.